So what exactly do you do in your business? Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Entrepreneurs Recovery started out as this idea, because just to back up a little bit, I wasn't just like leaving any job. I was leaving a job that I spent 14 years of my recovery. 13, no, well, actually, I got into the job before I found recovery, but then I spent 14 years working hard at this job to get a dream job. And I got that dream job, quote unquote. And I still had that hole in the soul. I still had that, like, oh my God, I'm still not here. I six-figure job. And I'm like, this is not what I want to be doing. So I ended up setting a date that I would leave the job by. I set a goal. I visualized the goal and I wrote it down. And I said, this is the date I'm going to leave by. And so in August 25th, 2017, I left my job at Verizon and I went for it. And so when I say I went for it, like, it was going to be coaching. It was going to be like writing books. So it's going to be really like being a coach, getting paid to be a coach and a speaker, write books. And so I kind of was like almost prematurely leaving the job, right? Because I didn't even have that all established, but I was so confident and I was so ready. I'm just like, I'm going for it. And plus, we're dealing with an epidemic of epic proportions. I mean, people were overdosing and dying in my life. And I was just sick of seeing all of the mental health, all of the deaths, it's just like, I got to do something about this, because my backstory, I mentioned a little bit about it, was going to prison and these different, I didn't go to prison, but potentially going to prison and having this story. It's like, I have to share this story. And so Entrepreneurs Recovery turned into me becoming a facilitator, because what happened is I took a facilitation training called Exchange. And when I took that training 3 years ago, it literally, on the second day of the training, it was very clear where I was going to use this work. And I was going to bring it directly into sober living homes or sober living residences. I was going to bring it right into treatment centers right away, because I learned a way, almost like a PhD in facilitation. So I had the insight and the knowledge I wanted to teach, but I didn't know how to deliver it to a group of people. One-on-one, I'm really good at, but how do I deliver it to 12 people, 40 people, 400 people? And that's what I learned, the art of facilitation and creating psychological safety so that people actually feel safe. They feel safe to take risks. They feel safe to be vulnerable. And I learned how to do that. So I immediately brought it to the sober living homes up in New Hampshire. I had a few friends that owned a couple. So I'd bring them to these sober living homes and it was working. These men, I would see them 3 to 6 months later, they're still in recovery. I'm like, okay, good. It wasn't because of me. I was just facilitating conversations worth having that were, personal development, self-care, spirituality. I was bringing it into these workshops and I started getting paid for it. So I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I started getting paid for facilitation. And it took a long time. It honestly took like 2 years before I had landed a really big opportunity to work with the state of Georgia, the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse, and work with 34 organizations and over 500, 600 peer recovery coaches in Georgia. And that was in 2020. So that was a big blessing. It started in 2019. And then 2020, I worked with them and the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse is doing incredible work. So they hired me as a facilitator and I facilitated with all the peer recovery coaches and leaders. And so that brings me up to today. So today I'm a holistic recovery coach and I'm also a facilitator. And the facilitation is where I can have the biggest impact. And so with the book coming out, it's going to get the story, the memoir, the backstory, because in recovery, we love stories. We got to hear the story. So I got the story in there. Then I have the formula, or the fears recovery toolkit, I call it, that helped me with the trauma, that helped me with the anxiety, that helped me with recovery. And I include everything in that journey. And so I just celebrated 15 years of recovery in December. And so I share that journey in the book, from drug and alcohol addiction and other addictions. When you get into recovery, you're not going to just be, oh, my life is perfect. You're going to have other addictions that are going to pop up, behavioral addictions. So that's kind of the story. And so today I'm a facilitator. And I'm also a holistic recovery coach and an author, because this book is like, we all have this book in us. And this is that book that's been living in me for a long time. And I'm excited to bring it to the world.
Well, congratulations on 15 years and for sharing that story with us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have to ask you, selfishly something, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I have a niece that struggled with anxiety and, well, struggles, and she tries to push herself through. I mean, she's a young kid. So do the kind of strategies like the cold shower and the stuff like this, and she's surrounded by addiction, bunch of wonderful addicts around her. Would these practices, you think, apply to someone who isn't experienced addiction themselves?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, at this point, I've been very, very blessed. I've been able to have thousands of conversations with people in recovery. Some are not in recovery, all different types of addictions, mental health conditions. And I can tell you that I've had people reach out. I had someone reach out to me recently because I am open about my recovery. I don't hide it. I mean, you can go to my social media. I don't have a big YouTube channel or any of that, but I am starting to put more content out there. You'll hear me. I'll talk about my story, my arrest. I'm very open about anything. And so I bring it to the table. So I have people reach out to me I don't know from different parts of the country. And this one gentleman who was addicted to crystal meth, living in Louisiana, and that there was a storm that came in 2020, a powerful storm. It knocked out the power, knocked out the cell phone towers. It was a disaster. And he somehow messaged me on Facebook, and I look at all my messages. So I looked at the message, and I was like, he was basically just reaching out for help. And he said, "What can I do? I can't go to meetings. There's nothing here for me." And he wasn't kidding. The storm knocked out the normal, going to Zoom meetings and all that stuff. So I said, "Here, do this. I want you to tomorrow morning," because he had tried meditation before. I said, "I want you to get up tomorrow morning. I want you to do 5 minutes of meditation. And when I say meditation, don't make this woo-woo. Just go ahead and breathe for 5 minutes deeply into your heart. Breathe in for 5 into the heart, hold it for 5, and then breathe out for 5, right into the heart. And you can close your eyes. You can put your hands on your heart if you want, and just keep doing these heart-centered breaths for 5 minutes. Then what I want you to do is just write down in a journal. I want you to write down your intentions for the day. My intention is to be strong. My intention is to be resilient. My intention is to be whole. My intention is to stay sober, whatever." Write it down. And then I want you to write what you appreciate about yourself and about others. I want you to write that down in a journal. And then I want you to take a cold shower. And I don't want you to take a straight cold shower. I just want you to take your normal shower. And then I want you to turn it at the end. I want you to turn it cold. And that's all I want you to do for me. Just do those simple habits and then check in with me. Well, I heard back from a couple of weeks later, and he's like, "Hey, thank you so much. I've been meditating. I got back into transcendental meditation. I've been sober. I'm still taking the cold showers." And he's still sober today. And I couldn't give him anything but my own. You can't give away something you don't have. So I could just give to him my experience, but I couldn't just tell him, "Go to an AA meeting." That wasn't available. So I gave him. So yes, what the stuff that I teach in the book, this 30 actions, and it's for everyone, because I believe every person's in recovery. We're all recovering from something. Just some of us on the addiction spectrum, it's life and death. That's where it was for me and many of my friends. It's life and death. It isn't like, oh, I can't just, I don't want to undervalue anyone's addiction, but there's people who are literally life and death. And I know you know this. So these practices are for both spectrums, because you need to have a foundation, a recovery plan of some sort. And number one is just to focus on that plan, right? We need to focus on a recovery. And so absolutely, it's a long way of answering and saying, yes, I mean, these suggestions that I have, they're for anyone to practice, because a lot of this stuff is I didn't invent this stuff. There's many, many amazing individuals who have came before me, and I'm just standing on the shoulders of them, practicing it and delivering it in another package.
It's awesome that you're sharing the message. And I think it comes with a lot of credibility, especially because of your amount of clean time and living it, versus someone who may not, have defined the journey using the logic of what you said, that everybody's in recovery. And I kind of believe that. And when I talk on my gambling show, I've kind of made it more centered around self-care for that very reason, because there's so many lessons that we learn that can translate into any relationship or any job or any life hurdle, I guess. You said facilitator. I want to understand. I know what facilitator means in the terms of a meeting. But can you dig into what that looks like with the peer recovery coaches that you're working with? Like, is it different than a trainer?
Yeah. So yeah, great question. So when I say facilitator, what I mean is a lot of times we have what is called the sage on the stage. You have that keynote speaker, that person that's going to lead the charge for the group. And that's not what I do. Can I do that? Sure. But I don't. A facilitator is the guide on the side. I'm the person that facilitates activities and choreographies that create rapid psychological safety. Meaning, if I walked into a group, let's say it's a sober living home, or let's say it's a business, I would walk into there and I would say, hi everyone, my name is Jesse. I'm really grateful to be here. I'm going to be with you today, and I'm going to take you through this next 90 minutes. We're going to have a really engaging, interactive experience. But we're going to start first with a question. And the question is this: why is it important for you to be here tonight? Why did you show up? What is it about being here that gives you a deep sense of meaning, purpose, and fulfillment? Go ahead and grab your pen and journal that down. And so I'd start with them, and I would do this immediately. So I would be facilitating questions that are relevant, questions that are life-giving. And then I would have the group journal. Then I would have them get into small groups or pairs and let them engage with each other. And then I would bring them back to the large group and hear some of the shares. And I would do this right in the beginning of any event or workshop or meeting. And then from there, we would get into some things I might be able to, share, insight, or teach. But then we would go back to asking them one of those high point questions or resilience questions. One question I love to use in addiction recovery, mental health recovery is, when is there a time in your life when you've overcome some type of obstacle, some type of hardship or challenge? How did you bounce back from it? Go ahead and share that story. And then they journal the story. And that's a powerful story. I mean, that's a powerful question, because every single person in mental health and addiction recovery has gone through adversities. Maybe every human ever, but certainly in addiction recovery, mental health recovery. So you have them journal that, and then you can do an activity where you get them into small groups of maybe 4 or 5, and you can actually have them create something. You can actually have them crowdsource and work together. So just imagine me going into a treatment center or a sober living home, and I got 13 individuals. I'm not going to go there and be like, hey, listen, I'm an author, and let me tell you about all this great stuff I've done. Not at all. I facilitate life-giving questions that they're able to interact with each other. So they get that community capital. They get to talk to each other. Then we get to hear it as a group. And then we might do activities to actually go deeper into the subject matter. That's highly experiential. It's not me just telling them all this great stuff. So hopefully that helps you with the facilitation versus maybe speaker or guide or.
It definitely does. And I had a couple flashes while you were speaking. One is in the online learning environments that I've gone in, the breakout rooms is my favorite part, when I get to talk to my peers and chew on whatever the topic is. So that makes complete sense to me. And I loved the foundation that you lay in the beginning, the way you just explained it, showing gratitude and announcing and your humility as you go through it. And then I was thinking about Zumba conferences that I've been to, and they do the same thing. They break us down and we dance in groups. And I'm not a confident dancer. I don't have the rhythm, but I go and I try to learn and I show up. So I can see from the perspective of it's so uncomfortable to talk about this stuff, especially newer in recovery, right? Not that it's a judgment thing, but it's really uncomfortable to talk about the dirty laundry.
Yeah. And the key to that is it's how you actually show up yourself. So everything matters.